Okay, guys, welcome everyone to this episode of Route Building and Navigation. In this episode, I'm going to address the topic of how to build routes online and how to navigate specifically using your mobile device. So without further ado, let's get going. My name is Eugene, and I'm going to present this webinar for you guys. And in this episode, I'm going to touch on computer software that you need for designing routes. I'm also going to look at hardware requirements that you need for mobile devices and how to use them. And then obviously we're going to look at the mobile apps that you're going to do. And then at the end, I'm going to do a proper full demonstration for you guys on how to do that, how to design your routes all the way through to navigating them. The one thing that I do want to say is there are thousands of pieces of software out there and apps and stuff. And this webinar is not about comparing applications, comparing software, measuring that this one qualifies 60% of what you want to do. I am, as a profession, in the software industry. I work on mobile devices. I develop interfaces, and I specialize on user interfaces. And that means that I'm currently focused. I've always been focused on simplicity in getting the job done. So that's what this webinar is about, is not showing you all the software that's out there, but a practical solution on how you can do that. Let's start with just why I'm currently navigating and why it's important for me. So obviously navigation is to know where you are. I want to know generally always. I'm very situationally aware, and I really appreciate knowing where I am. I want to know where I'm going, and for me, actually navigation boils down to riding a line. I always refer to just riding a line. So that line can be on a map, GPS. It doesn't matter what the device is, but as soon as I've got a line, I can ride it. And the other reason why I actually like the preparation of navigation is I don't want to miss cool routes. Originally, when I started riding, I was very gung-ho, and I will basically jump on the bike and just zip in a direction. The problem is after I've come back from a route, people will say, listen, you were in that area, did you see X, Y, and Z? And I thought, I didn't do proper preparation. I missed all these cool things. So for me, navigation has been critical. Now, the reason why I'm a mobile navigator and why I exclusively navigate with mobile for years now is this is basically the type of riding that I do. And I hope you guys can maybe associate with that. So I'm just quickly going to take it through that I do multi-day long rides. I do day outings. We've got in Gauteng, we've got a very cool off-road group called the 690 Rampages, and we basically ride KTM 690s, all of us, and we do day out rides. We also do events. So in an event, a multi-day event, someone or the organizers will send me a route up front, and I have to basically use that as my basis. And then we've got sort of, you go through, how do I get there? Can I get there? Friends come up with ideas. Why don't we go and ride Baviaanskloof in South Africa? Can we get over the Magaliesberg or stuff like that? And then the one thing that's really important for me, and that's become important, is sharing routes. Now, I'm not talking about riding a route or even an event and then sharing it to the world. I'm talking about sharing routes that you are planning to ride. Traditionally, I would design a route, or someone would design a route, and they would basically go through, listen, what do I think of this route? And it was a horrible effect of screen capture or sending me a file for Basecamp or anything like that. And it's horrible. So what I really like now is a collaboration on route designing. So I will basically do a little route design that let's say goes up to Blouberg. I see there's a Blouberg there, Rowan. And then before I go, I'll have everyone that's riding with me have a look at the route, and we'll basically collaborate. So that's sort of the framework that's led to my requirement to do that. Now, just from the chat app, if you guys can it's not a formal question, just tell me if you can associate with that type of riding. Long multi-day rides, day outings, events, and riding with friends. Some of my background is I'm a technologist, but I've been doing extreme sports and extreme events and adventure events my whole life. From rock climbing, mountain biking, enduro, adventure bike riding, racing. I'm a helicopter pilot. I'm also a paraglider. So between all the events and the styles I've done, I've basically always used GPSs. I've been using GPSs since the 80s, when the Americans basically released the GPS satellites for private use. And I've always basically been using one of three types of navigation. So either paper maps, which I'm still a very big fan of, or what I refer to as your GPS type of devices, although GPS refers to the technology, but I refer to your Garmin's as a GPS type of device. So on GPSs, I've always had Garmin's. I think once in my life I've owned a TomTom, which I wasn't very impressed with, but I've always had Garmin's, from the E-Trex to the big mounted to navigation. So I've been using Garmin, and for the last 4 years, I've basically been using mobile devices. And that's basically why I decided to do this webinar and help people get into mobile, because there's a couple of myths that I just quickly want to go through. One of the myths about paper is the fact that it's either outdated, which I don't think it is. It's always relevant because it never fails. It never breaks down. It doesn't use resources while you ride. You can basically pack a map anywhere. The problem with maps are that they aren't too detailed. And if you start doing a lot of detail, you really need, obviously, quite a lot of stuff. Then from a GPS side, I think the basic myth is that if you get an adventure bike, you need a GPS unit like a Garmin, which is completely true. And I think the biggest myth, which is the basis for this webinar, is that mobile has a couple of problems. So just to quickly go through some of them, and all these are really myths, is bad battery life, which is not the case, is that mobile devices are fragile, screen usage with your gloves on, sun and exposure, because obviously the device is in the sun if you navigate the whole time. Vibration has always been asked, don't the devices break with vibration? Weather and rain. In other words, if it's exposed to weather, it's a cell phone, so obviously it's going to do. Mounting, and then the biggest one is that if you do mobile, you have to be online. So that's the biggest portion of this webinar, is also to tell you that all these myths are actually a whole bunch of nonsense. So in my honest opinion, I'm just going to turn my camera off so that you've got a little bit bigger picture of the slides. So has Mike just caught up with GPSs, but they've surpassed traditional GPS devices in all areas. I've moved over 5 years ago now, into using mobile, exclusive mobile, for all my stuff, my multi-day events, my competitive events. I exclusively only use that. And the reason for that is functionality far exceeds that of your GPS devices. Flexibility, in other words, you've got a phone, you can basically use that phone for tons of other things. Sharing and user interface. For mobile phones, we've all become far better at using mobile than we have GPS devices. Options availability, in other words, what type of devices. You've got a plethora of thousands of options. And then something that's actually one of the most important ones for me is availability. And that is availability of devices, because it's always interesting if you do a cross-country or a multi-country route. The question is always, let's say I ride Triumph from KTM. The question then is always, listen, are there KTM dealers? What if the KTM breaks down or the Triumph breaks down? Let's not go into the KTM bashing thing. But if something, where do I get parts? The interesting thing is that if that happens with your GPS device, I can almost guarantee you that you will be able to get a mobile phone a lot quicker and easier than any GPS or Garmin device. So if your device breaks in Mozambique or Kenya or Africa or Australia or Europe, you can almost walk up to anyone and they will have a mobile phone to help you. So from availability, that's one of the biggest, my biggest drives. And then, of course, price. I've got a cost estimation at the end of the presentation to just give you an idea, but I can tell you that I'm talking about 25 to 30% cost of what a GPS setup will cost you.